Hello and welcome to the Borealis Experience. I'm your host Aurora and I'm very happy to be spending some time with you today. Thank you so much for being here and choosing my podcast. I hope I can bring you value, calmness, peace, hope, and love. Yesterday I was live on my Facebook channel, so to say, and I talked about self-awareness, and I really want to make sure that my dear podcast listeners who might not be connected with me on Facebook yet will not miss out on this topic that is really dear to my heart. I raised a question on my Facebook timeline, and a couple people answered on what relationship, if there was one relationship they could better improve in their life, which one would it be? And a lot of people answered that it would be their relationship with themselves. And of course, I have to jump on this topic right away because, as you know, as a long-time listener, and as you will find out as a new listener, I'm all about sharing the tools that help me along the way in getting to know myself better. The better you know yourself, the better decisions you're going to make that will have a deep impact on your health and your well-being, but also on the people around you. So, self-awareness, how do we become more self-aware? How do we see our blind spots? Well, we can read self-help books, we can watch documentaries about the subconscious mind and the conscious mind, or we can engage in a journey with a coach. Here, a little disclaimer, I'm not a mental health counselor, I'm not a psychotherapist. I share my passion to help other people and the tools that helped me back then when I was, feeling lost and uncomfortable in my skin. So if you're struggling with depression, if you are struggling intensely, then please don't hesitate to reach out to a mental health practitioner or to your family doctor even. All right, let's dive into today's topic. Self-awareness is so incredibly interesting, let's say. It is very revealing, and we will sometimes be proud of what we see and discover in ourselves, but we will sometimes also feel repulsed and wanting to reject what we find out about ourselves, because we all have a certain image and we want to live up to that image. It could be I'm of service, I'm a good person, I am liked by other people, I am funny, I make people laugh, and everybody who is around me feels good and joyous. And we try to live by this image, and everything that could disturb this image is gonna be, the enemy for a short amount of time. You can see when you make something, when something comes to the surface, during the work with a coach or when you work on yourself, you will see stuff that you thought you didn't have inside of you, right? We all have hidden treasures and also little demons that we don't necessarily want to see. And it is about shining some light onto these demons. In my video, I talked about how, for instance, our way of relating to other people is heavily influenced by our childhood. So the way your primary caregivers took care of you, the way you felt about the world back then is kind of the blueprint of who you are nowadays in a relationship. Does that mean that it is kind of a stamp that you have on your forehead or on your DNA and you cannot change it? No, this is not what it means, thank God, because we are also deeply shaped by our conclusions that we make with our mind, our brain, and our environment. And it is very likely that nowadays you live a very different life than you had when you were a child. But sometimes your mind, your subconscious, your blueprint, so to say, is still stuck in the past. So you might have been a people pleaser. You might have grown up with people that were always busy and maybe a little bit impatient, sometimes maybe aggressive. So as a child, you wanted to fit in, you wanted to please. It was your survival mechanism, because if you don't belong to your family, if they kind of, shut you out of the system, then your survival is at risk. So you become a people pleaser and learn how to relate to people through pleasing. You do that in your adulthood and you keep getting one door shut in front of you after the other. You are disappointed. You are always the giver and don't get anything back in return. Well, maybe you are a people pleaser, you are overgiving, and people are just totally overwhelmed with that. So there's this book called Your Attachments. I will put it in the show notes, where they explain very specifically how you fall into certain categories after taking a little test or after reading longer and finding out who you are. And then you will find out what kind of ways you choose to relate to people and what it might trigger in other people, and how you can become aware of this pattern, because people are usually only reacting to what they receive from you. You know, we tend to blame people, but a lot of the times it is us just not being aware of blind spots. Another thing when we do this work of self-awareness is that if we get behind the scenes and find out that your household you grew up in, your parents back then didn't do, the perfect job, then you cannot slip into ultra victim mentality and blame your parents for your misfortune nowadays, because you have to take ownership. You have to be 100% accountable for what's happening today in your life. Blaming your parents is totally lame, is not going to get you anywhere, and chances are that you're going to destroy the relationship that you have built ever since the stuff happened in the childhood. And what for? Instead, focus on what you can repair. I don't want to say necessarily repair, because you're not broken, but what you want to change in order to live a more fulfilled and self-aware life. So you see already that I'm only going to touch on the surface here. I can only go very into depth with that topic when I have a client sitting in front of me and opening up to me about specifics. But as a general rule, I want to say that it is very, very important for you to look inside and to find the areas where you have conflict, where you have resistance, where you have pain, where you have repetitive disappointment, and find out what it is inside of you that you can adjust, change, throw overboard. And to not blame others for discomfort, because that doesn't help. You can't change other people. You can't undo your past. All you can do is be in the present, rest and reflect and learn, and then let that shit go. You have to learn to let go then, because what you want to focus on is the lesson, the learning, and how you can apply the learned, the new pattern without falling back into habits that, feel comfortable from back then or even from now, but didn't get you anywhere. So whenever a person tells me they want to become self-aware, I'm just getting so extremely excited, because that's the first biggest step into a direction of more healthy living and genuine, sexy relationships, and out of victim mentality. We don't want to be in that place of blaming others. I know that it is very easy to go and connect with other people. Oh yeah, your parents have fucked up in the past as well, mine too. Okay, so now we're the broken ones, and we kind of allow ourselves to be couch bums or whatever you choose to do to avoid accountability and ownership. You have to have the balls to look into the mirror and to know that you might be still stuck in victim mentality and survival mode, and that you want to get out of it, that you want to have tools provided that can help you to dig yourself out of it, and to then test and see how your relationships change, but most importantly, how the relationship to yourself will change. So all this to say, self-awareness is the biggest and most beautiful journey you can be on, to find out where your boundaries are, to find out what you like, to find out what you don't like, to be able to say no to situations, to be able to do less, but to have more and to be more, right? It's better to have less contacts, but more intense contacts. You want to go into depth. Also, the way you consume information, the people that you follow on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. If I would just look at the list of the people that you follow, I could give you a big clue on what your goals are in life and how you probably feel about yourself on a daily basis. Chances are, if you are, following a lot of people who trigger jealousy, who trigger judgment, you will feel not as clear, not as good about yourself. If you follow accounts that are deeply inspiring and motivating you, then you'll feel very different. And we can all not underestimate the power of Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, because we're all hooked to it and we are all influenced by it. So we have to learn on how it impacts us, and we have to learn to be very specific about what we consume there. All right, I'm not going to overwhelm you in any way, I hope. I'm going to leave you with this. If there's any questions, any comments, please never hold back and message me on Facebook. And if you have any requests on future topics here, also shoot me a message. Thank you so much for being here. If you want to send me a token of appreciation, you can buy me a coffee. There's a link in the show notes. And take really good care of yourself. I'll be out there very soon again.